Hey, this is part 2. Watch part 1 here, or stick around for a recap of part 1. If you've already seen part 1, you can skip to here to just get right into it. There's about to be spoilers for part 1. Okay, bye. Akihito Kanbara is a high school student who sees a girl on the edge of the school's rooftop one day. He runs up, trying to talk her out of it, when he gets promptly stabbed through the chest by her. Luckily for him, he is immortal, and the girl, Mirai Kuriyama, then proceeds to use him as a training dummy every day after school, trying to gain enough confidence to hunt down a Dream Shade hiding in her apartment. He makes her a deal. He will help her get rid of the Dream Shade if she stops attacking him. She accepts, and after their successful mission, they start to become friends. Mirai then puts a stop to the friendship by telling Akihito that she's not someone who deserves friends, because she's killed someone she loved with her own hands. We pick up a few days later, with Mirai hunting down another Dream Shade. However, even though she has it cornered, she still can't bring herself to easily kill it. It makes a run for it, when this little chinchilla dude attacks and kills it. We see Mitsuki standing up above, telling Mirai she can have the Dream Shade's gemstone. Mirai thinks that Mitsuki is just trying to win her over and refuses, saying she's not like them. Off in the distance, someone else is watching them. Elsewhere, an officer from the Spirit Hunter Association, Miroku Fujima, is meeting with Azumi Nase, the older sister of Mitsuki and Hiromi. He is here to investigate the upcoming Hollow Shadow, so he'll be here for the next couple of days. Meanwhile, at school, Ai walks up to Akihito, asking him if he wants to have lunch with her. He says he does, but he has to do something first. He then asks her, where would you go if you were so broke as a joke you couldn't even afford a plain bowl of noodles? She thinks for a second, and we cut to Akihito finding Mirai near a ramen vending machine on one of the floors. She repeats herself from their conversation earlier, saying he shouldn't get any more involved with her. He says he heard that she took down a Dream Shade. Mitsuki gave him the gemstone and he sold it off, and he's now wanting to give her the money. She is shocked that it was worth about $100. No, I couldn't possibly take it. She, reluctantly accepts. He then tries to recruit her to the literature club, but she says she can't before walking off. Later that night, Mitsuki has Akihito meet with her at a train yard, where, after a bit of chatting, she tells him that Mirai is most likely planning to go after the Hollow Shadow. She did a bit of digging and found out there is history with the Hollow Shadow and her. Sometime later, Akihito makes his way to Mirai's house, where he tells her that he knows she's going to go after the Hollow Shadow tonight, and wants to know why. She tells him it has nothing to do with him, telling him to leave. The Hollow Shadow begins making its way over the nearby hills, and due to its sheer power, the sky develops an eerie purple glow. Mirai begins to make her way out, when Akihito, who is waiting for her, tells her that even if she kills the Hollow Shadow, it won't change anything that has happened, that it's pointless putting her life at risk. She tells him she knows, and she should wait inside until it's over. He asks her why is she still going then, and she says that the Inami family had adopted her, despite her cursed blood, and taught her how to suppress her powers. When she was young, she had become completely isolated, but their daughter, Yui, became her friend and was determined to show her the world. One day, when they were out walking, the Hollow Shadow appeared and possessed Yui's body. Mirai felt nothing but fear and had no other option but to kill the possessed Yui. She tells him that he couldn't possibly understand how she feels before walking off, telling him not to follow. Mirai makes her way to the outskirts of the city and prepares to confront the Hollow Shadow. Just then, she gets attacked by a girl wielding a sword, spear, chainsaw looking thing. Cool. She recognizes the girl as Sakura Inami, Yui's younger sister. As they clash, the Hollow Shadow rolls over them, transporting them to an illusory part of the city. Mirai tries to run away, and we see Sakura's sword even has a gun mechanism.
Gator needs a scat!
Double cool. Mirai is cornered, and the chainsaw blade begins to cut through her sword. Just as it's almost all the way through, Akihito comes in, knocking Sakura away, telling Mirai he's had enough. She asks him what he means, and he says he'll tell her later. He tries to pull her up, but she can't manage it as she has used a lot of her blood. He then fully picks her up, taking her out, where she asks him how he found her. He replies saying he has no idea, he simply jumped in. We then see them running through a labyrinth created by the Hollow Shadow, eventually making their way to a twisted train station. Mirai sees the apparition of Yui in one of the train windows and they make their way inside one of the trains. As they reach the end carriage, a massive hand smashes into them. We see that the Hollow Shadow has taken the form of Yui and grabs Mirai. Just as Akihito goes to intervene, Sakura stops him, and we see the Hollow Shadow grabbing Mirai around the neck, preparing to kill her, with Mirai feeling too guilty about killing Yui to be able to do anything. Being able to do nothing else, Akihito throws her ring at her, which snaps her back to her senses, using her blood to dissolve the illusion. Once she lands back on the train, the Hollow Shadow reveals its true form. Mirai extends her sword massively, stabbing into the center of it, pumping it full of her corrosive blood, which manages to destroy it, exploding. The illusion fades and they appear back in the real world. Akihito is about to run over to her when she tells him to stay back. Just then, we see drops of her blood begin to fall from the sky. They fall back into an incredibly convenient alcove as her blood begins to rain down, destroying and killing everything it touches in the nearby area. As it slows to a stop, Sakura is gone, and Mirai asks Akihito if she still seems like a normal person who deserves friends.
メガネの美少女にしか見えないけど。
Just then, the hollow shadow, not fully dead, pierces Akihito's chest, possessing his body. Mirai is shook, but Akihito tells her to stab him, saying that it must be in a weakened state right now, and she can finish it off if she chases it out of his body. She begins to get worried, but he reassures her, reminding her that he's immortal. She tears up before charging at him, stabbing him through the chest. He tells her that it's not enough. She needs to unleash her blood before giving her a reassuring smile. She does so, and the hollow shadow pieces out of his body. Mirai fights with it briefly before overpowering and destroying it. Its gemstone falls to the ground, and Akihito gives a difficult thumbs up. As she begins to walk over to him, Hiromi, Ayaka, and Ninomiya appear, with Hiromi telling her to stay back. The trio walks up to Akihito. Hiromi asks him why he would go up against the hollow shadow when he knew this would happen. Akihito says he's sorry, and Hiromi replies saying he might not survive this. Akihito says he knows, before passing out. They then begin to set up a spiritual cage around Akihito's body. Mirai asks them what they're doing, and Ayaka explains that due to him being a half-shade, when his body falls into a perilous state, his shade half awakens. Mirai can do nothing but watch in horror as Akihito suddenly transforms, proceeding to go berserk. Despite the trio's best attempt at keeping Akihito contained, it doesn't take long before they are completely overwhelmed by his destructive power, and are all knocked unconscious. Mirai thinks to herself that now she understands, realizing that this whole time she was thinking that he could never understand how she feels when she's so different, when in reality, he understands it better than anyone else, and she is the one that doesn't get it. Seeing no other option, she runs towards him, blocking one of his fireballs before jumping on him, wrapping him in a giant bear hug, which actually seems to work great and calms him down completely. Some time passes, and as Akihito awakens, he is devastated at the fact that this has happened again. Mirai then wakes up, telling him she is so sorry for misunderstanding him this entire time. Afterwards, she treats him to dinner. When they're finished, as Akihito goes to leave, he asks her the same thing she asked him earlier, if he looks like a person who deserves friends.
そうですね。ただの性格の悪いメガネ好きの先輩に見えます。
Elsewhere, we see Azumi Nase bringing the gemstone of the Hollow Shadow to an unknown man, saying that should stall the Spirit Hunter Society for the time being. A few days pass, and after constant persistence, Akihito manages to convince Mirai to at least come to the literature room. She's still not sure about actually joining, but after seeing that they have a book about gardening, she is very easily persuaded. Later that day after school, they make their way to the Nase house, where they meet Miroku Fujima, who explains that since the Hollow Shadow is gone, his work here is done. On his way past, he gives a sus side-eye to Akihito. They make their way inside, where Izumi confiscates Mirai's Spirit Hunter Association membership, suspending her for a month. This means she will no longer be able to get Dreamshade gems appraised. She asks Akihito how is she going to be able to pay for her rent. He says he supposes he could lend her a little, and Izumi asks her if she's that hard up for money. And Akihito speaks up for her, saying she's flat broke, always complaining about how starving she is. Mirai says that she can't help it, it's because of her blood. In the lobby after their meeting, Hiromi asks Mitsuki if she's going to be working at her job for Ayaka this year, and if so, she could probably talk to her about trying to get a job for Mirai. Mitsuki says that she doesn't mind helping her out. Mirai and Mitsuki then make their way to a pancake house together, where Mitsuki tells her that it's just a simple clerk job at the storefront, but there's also something on the side that she always turns down, that if she agreed to, she could earn a bit of money from. She tells Mirai to ask about it when they get there. Then there are some pretty awkward conversations and silence before the food arrives. The little chinchilla dude, whose name is Sweet Potato, has a nibble on the pancake, which Mirai is also staring at. Mitsuki offers her a bite, which she graciously accepts. They then start to talk about Mirai's newfound change of heart to socialization. Mirai says that she had jumped to the conclusion of not deserving friendship, but ever since meeting Akihito and learning about him, he has helped her change her mind on that, stating that even though Mitsuki and Hiromi might be just observing him because of his powers, that doesn't mean they're still not friends. As they're talking, a man walks past them with a strange aura around him. They both realize that there is a Dreamshade possessing him, and go after him, forcing him into an abandoned building. Mitsuki then creates a barrier around it and the Dreamshade leaves the man's body, beginning to fight with Mirai. They fight briefly, and after making it to the rooftop, it splits into multiple smaller versions of itself. No longer hesitant, Mirai uses her blood, shooting it at every individual piece, killing the Dreamshade. Shortly after, Ninomiya runs up, telling them she came as soon as she saw the barrier, saying she's been actually eyeing off that Dreamshade for a while now. Mirai tells her that she can have the gemstone, as she's suspended and won't have any use for it. Ninomiya asks her if she's sure, saying that a gemstone like this would be worth at least $500. Ninomiya then offers to treat them all to something in return, taking them all to a nice all-you-can-eat barbecue dinner. During tea, Mirai notices a sign behind them for the upcoming Lantern Festival, asking if Mitsuki has ever gone before. She says she hasn't, because of her duties as a spirit warrior of the Nase clan. The next day, Akihito is absent from school, while Mitsuki takes Mirai to Ayaka's shop for the job, where we find out the second part of the job Mitsuki was referring to earlier. Photos taken for someone who specifically likes glasses. I wonder who that could be. Afterwards, they're all talking and Ayaka asks them how Akihito is doing, saying that he always gets depressed after he's turned into his shade half and loses control. They tell her that he wasn't at school today. Ai and Ayaka then leave for the Lantern Festival, with Mitsuki and Mirai looking after the store while they're gone. While they're watching the shop, Mirai tries to understand why Mitsuki doesn't want to go to the festival. All she really gets as an answer though, is that spirit warriors must be alone. After trying to convince her to at least enjoy the festival by setting up lanterns inside the shop, Mitsuki gives in. They get dressed and together they make their way to the festival, where Akihito and Hiromi coincidentally meet them. And Mirai says at least tonight, none of them are alone. The next episode is pretty much a filler, except we do get this insanely high budget flex dance sequence, which is pretty cool. A few days after, we see Sakura fighting with a reptile looking Dreamshade. Upon defeating it, she takes its gemstone, placing it onto her weapon, which seems to grab and infuse the Dreamshade into itself, absorbing it. The next day, as they're in their club room, Ninomiya interrupts them, letting them know that Sakura is transferring to their school, much to Mirai's shock. Ninomiya tells Mirai that she should ask the Nase family to intervene against Sakura's transfer, but Mirai decides against it, saying that it wouldn't really change anything between them if she's at school or not. If she's going to be attacked by her, she is going to be attacked. Later that day, on his way home from school, Akihito comes across Sakura fighting a flock of flying Dreamshades, which, upon her defeating them, due to the stress and the intense battle, she collapses. Akihito picks up her weapon, but as he does so, he feels it starting to try and drain his life away. Not wanting to just leave her on the street, he takes her back to his house, making her a rice omelette, which she refuses to eat.
まずい
Akihito then gives her the Shadestone gem from her previous battle, which she feeds to the weapon, telling Akihito each time she gives the weapon a gemstone, it grows stronger. Akihito asks if she's going through all this effort to kill Mirai. Sakura says she is, and was told that if she does kill Mirai, she can keep the weapon. She explains that it was given to her on that specific condition. Akihito asks who lent it to her.
男
She has no idea. Suddenly, Mirai shows up at Akihito's doorstep, and he is forced to throw Sakura into a cabinet while he tries to talk Mirai into leaving. This doesn't work in the slightest and just makes her more suspicious that he's actually up to something. He eventually tells her the truth and we hear his window open and break. They rush in, with Mirai and Sakura exchanging glares before she dips out. The next day during school, Akihito tells Hiromi that Sakura is most likely using the staff to try and feel closer to Yui, as Sakura has very little spirit hunter powers of her own. In the afternoon after school, Mirai and Sakura meet, beginning their inevitable battle. However, unlike their previous battle, Mirai is more resolute, both in knowing that her death wouldn't erase the regret of Yui's death, and of her own power. She admits that the last time they fought, she was saving energy for the Hollow Shadow. They don't fight for long before Mirai shows her the true gap between their powers. However, as she is now losing, this causes Sakura's weapon to turn on her, attempting to consume her and her power. Mirai realizes this and saves Sakura from the attack. Mirai then tries to reconcile with her, telling her how Yui always used to envy her, because she didn't have to be burdened by being a spirit hunter like she did. Mirai also feels the same way, telling Sakura.
帰ろう
Sakura at first refuses, but eventually relents, catching up to Mirai, going home with her. Back in the sewers, the slimy dude from earlier picks up the weapon, saying it should be fed enough now, stating that it's probably time for him to retrieve the Hollow Shadow. That night, Mitsuki is walking around the house with Sweet Potato, when she notices her sister, Izumi, staring out the window. Wondering what's got her so captivated, Mitsuki follows her gaze, and we see the town streets making a crystal clear image of the surrounding buildings. Izumi then mentions that a lull is coming, a period of stagnation where everything comes to a halt. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second and it really helps me out.